I'm Annie McCann. I am an author and an MC from Western Sydney. For those who don't know where Western Sydney is, think maybe Parramatta or the Parramatta Eels, who I would like to say are my glory team, but they're not doing very well this year. So think Parramatta, that's where I'm from. I'm an Indonesian Australian Muslim writer, now author of my debut novel called My Harimau King, which is a middle grade time travel fantasy that starts in Parramatta and winds up in the ancient kingdom of Pajajaran, which is present day West Java, Indonesia.
What inspired your the My Harimau King?
Yeah. So essentially, as a reader myself and the founder of a network of readers about 16 years ago, actually, Readers Review was when I founded that 16 years ago. Over the years, I've read a lot of fantasy books because I love fantasy fiction that infuses cultural mythology or stems from cultural legends and folklore. And I spent years looking for one that had Indonesian representation because that speaks to my culture. And Indonesia is rich with mythology, folklore, and legend. And for many years, I had not found one in the middle grade space or the YA space that represented Indonesia. We did have some books that had come out by Indonesian authors, but they were more either rom-com or middle grade contemporary, but not ones that infused mythology or anything like that for a fantasy read. So it just got to a point where I thought, well, why can't I be the one who does this? And so my Harimau King wasn't the first thing I wrote. I actually started with short stories. So short stories was my background, and it was always my, I guess, dream to capture the legends and folklore of West Java, where my mum's from, and infuse them into my own original stories. So I've got about six short stories out now, most of which are the fantasy stories that capture the mythology and folklore and different legends of West Java. But My Harimau King is my debut, and I was always wanting to write an actual book that captured my not just my culture but my heritage and my ancestry legend. And I started with the short stories and moved on to the novel, which was about 4 or 5 years in the making. So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Did you find it easier to shift to a full novel from doing the short stories, or did you sort of go, "Oh, I really need to plan plan this
Uh,
out"?
Yeah, it was a work in progress, I have to say, because with short stories, it's like they're very episodic. So they're very quick, beginning, middle, and end. You don't have to flesh it out too much. You can sort of get to the point a lot quicker. And that was one of my learning curves when I was writing My Harimau King, is that because it was a novel, a few things had to be fleshed out more. Characters needed to be a little bit more developed. They needed more character arc and that sort of thing. So that was a learning curve for me, definitely.
I definitely love how it's bringing in the Indonesian culture too, because you do find that it's like the Anglo-Saxon, the Norse mythology, and everything that seems to have loads of books, but the smaller country mythologies, like they just do not get to see the light as much, and they're just as rich, really.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. I'm very passionate about representation. You often hear me maybe hashtag, or hear me hashtag, see me hashtag, or hear me say on panels how representation matters. And I've even written articles about that for different websites about how important it is to have that representation, whether through an adventure story or a contemporary story, because you cannot be what you can't see. And especially in a world that half the time doesn't make sense, or it's broken, it's messed up and confused, a lot of us find connection through creative writing or arts and the like, or even pop culture. Even for me, if I can share very quickly, being a Muslim woman, growing up in the Western world, we haven't exactly had the best rap in the media as a
Yeah.
Muslim community, and we're always, painted with, say, with the tail of the same brush, with a lot of, negative publicity and negative stories. But we've never really seen one that featured a superhero or, a main character that was positive. But that pivotal moment came with Ms. Marvel Kamala Khan, and I talk about her a
Yeah.
lot, and how, she's not a hijabi like me, but she is a Muslim and she holds her faith very close to her heart, as her family do. And just seeing her in a comic or on screen as a superhero who is, full of heart, and her faith is just part of who she is, that is what I love to see, is just that representation and how it just shows the world, A, for once we're the good guys, and B, it's just a part of who we are. It's our life. It's just, we're just people, we got on with our day, but we could also be a character in a superhero film, or we can also, be a hero in an adventure story. And that's why it was really important to me to feature that, particularly in my Harimau King. Yeah.
Mm. You always want like a young person to read and like that's me, and not everyone will get that in books, and it's really good that representation is happening. Well,
Yeah.
it's starting to happen much more now, which is what we need to keep.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I hear you 100%. I mean, it started, I believe, with the own voice movement about 5 or 6 years ago, and then it's transitioned to we need diverse books and that authentic, voice and original storytelling, from voices that are either marginalized or they're not heard. And you mentioned about, yeah, a young kid reading a story and connecting with that. I'm actually really heartwarmed to say that it's happened with my book. Like, I
That's
have
really
young kids who will tell their parents, who contact me, and like, I've got an 8-year-old reading this book, I've got a 13-year-old reading this book, and they said, "Oh my God, there's an Indonesian Muslim. I'm Indonesian Muslim. Oh my God, this is me." And they have like a non-Indonesian friend who's an, just an Anglo-Saxon Australian, and they're like, "Oh, that's like my friend from school, and our friendship is very similar." And just having that connection and hearing that kids are connecting with that book, it is so rewarding, really
Yeah,
rewarding.
I think that's especially as part of like as a teacher and librarian, like
Mm.
that's what I aim to have with
Mm.
kids. Like when they pick up a book, no matter what they are, they can connect with it. And if it's like just keep looking because it's now going to be out there, like you will find one, definitely.
Exactly. And, more and more of the authors that are coming out. I recently did a virtual panel with three other amazing authors who identify as Southeast Asian heritage. So, Patri Jones, who's the author of Skylight, Isabel Magnadino, who's the author of The Serpent Rider, and Raida Shah Aidil, who is the author of How to Free Jinn. Patri's Thai, Ryder's Malaysian, Isabel's Philippine, I'm Indonesian Australian, and together the four of us, we didn't just write middle grade. We were the first to write middle grade fantasy that had our heritage infused in the story. And we talked about Southeast Asian fantasy and how that's starting to creep in as well, particularly in the middle grade space because it hadn't been done before. And it just seemed more and more of that cultural diversity, or just diversity in general, finally finding its place on a Western bookshelf. It's work has been done, but I think we can still find, areas to close the gap, I'm sure.
Always.
Yes.
What was your approach to world and character building?
Yep. So I'm someone, like I said, who loves fantasy books, but one of my pet peeves is when it's just an info dump.
Yeah.
I can't, like, I will lose interest. I need things to pick up pretty quickly. No disrespect to those who love the intricate world building, because it works for people. They love that slow burn or that very detailed, intricate,
Mm.
sort of world building. I'm being on the go all the time. I need to be sort of roped in quickly. So my approach was to have enough of the world on the page, but not to sort of info dump it or drown you into that as well. And the same with the characters. I worked with what I knew. So I worked, for example, Sumaya Jackson's our protagonist. She's very loosely based on me. So being Indonesian Australian, only child from Western Sydney, knew how to speak the language and all that. But the key difference was she didn't know her cultural heritage or her true identity, whereas I always knew since a young child, what my identity was and the nature of the history of my family tree. So I worked with what I knew, and I also worked with what I desired. So the character Sumaya lives very close to her cousin Alif and his older sister Rindu. And that's not something I had growing up. My family's very far. My mum's family's all in Indonesia. My dad's family's in central west New South Wales or interstate. So, meetings and was rare unless it was like Christmas or, special events. So I sort of infused what the dynamics I wish I had growing up as well. And also that cultural diverse type of team friendships, like that's something I had actually, like, growing up. I went to a high school in Western Sydney, and my group was the most multiculturally diverse
Yeah.
friend group in the school at the time. So I worked with what I knew, and I worked with what I wanted to see as well, because the idea for me was writing this book. It was the type of book I wish I had growing up and wanting to read myself. So I infused that into my approach.
I think that's the easiest way to do it as well. So you're not sort of trying to think so outside the box that you're like, actually, I can't write this book. It's really making it really hard.
Exactly, especially with a debut, you need to start with what you know, and there's no harm in doing that. you start with what you know, and then if you want to challenge yourself and write outside of the box, we'll do that when you're experienced. Like I wrote what I knew for my first novel plus the six short stories that I've written. So I might, push the boundary a little bit, but not just yet. I'm still learning myself.
No. Rather not test the limit just right now.
That's right. I don't want to get it wrong.
Were you more of a plotter or a pantser during
Oh,
the book?
I ask this question a lot when I'm interviewing authors.
Yeah.
I have to say, I mean, I would like to believe that I was both, but I think I'm more of a pantser because this book came together as I went. I didn't have it all plotted in my head. I had the idea or the premise in my head. Interestingly, I was a lot inspired by like Jumanji, the
Yeah.
original OG Jumanji with the board game, and they get sucked into the board game. I had it in my head where it was like the kids, they find something they're not supposed to touch, and bam, they touch it, and look what happens. Like, they get sucked into time travel. So that was always in my head. But I also had it in my head initially that these kids found something in an attic. And I thought,
Mm,
hang on a minute, we're in Australia. We don't have attics.
no.
We don't have basements. I watch and read too much American material. I
Yeah.
need to Aussify this. And so that's when I put the box in the tin shed. How Aussie's that?
Yeah.
Backyard tin shed with, lawnmowers in there with lawnmower clippings at the bottom of the blades and things like that. So that was sort of the inspirational, or I guess the pansy that went along with writing the story. And I'm old school, so I bring a journal with me everywhere I go. I don't trust my phone or technology, as we had this morning trying to link this up. So anytime I had an idea that I thought would be a good scene or a good, even like a good conversation or dialogue, I would just write it in this journal, this very messy, scrappy journal that I carry everywhere with me.
You have the scenes coming to your mind already. It's like, yep, I already wrote this part. I can go back to have a look at it.
Yeah, one thing you learn is you do create plot holes as you're writing, and it's always very helpful to reread it and then have another pair of eyes read over it as well, because they will see the plot holes that you've missed as well. And it's very common rookie mistake, or one of my biggest rookie mistake was changing the tense. So, I'd start
Yeah.
with present tense, first person present tense, and then by accident I would revert to past. And I think that's because that's how we talk. But that was
Yeah.
something that I learned as well going along with
The
it.
grammar and sentence structure is the bane of existence of editing and everything and
It's a
writing.
thorn in my side.
Did you have a favorite moment to write?
A favorite, I was in part of the book that
Book,
was
part
very,
of the book.
oh, that's a good
Yeah.
one. I would probably have to say the actual discovery of the box and the things that they found in it, and then when they transported, I was actually really enjoying writing that part because I put myself there as if, how would I feel if I discovered something that could possibly be the key to our family feud or possibly give us some answers. And then next thing you know, I'm not finding letters and I'm not finding, clues. I'm actually finding things that really belong in an ancient museum. What is this doing here in the backyard of a Parramatta home? Like, I really enjoyed that, and the research that came with that as well, because obviously I had to cross reference the weapons and the material to make sure that it was indeed traditional West Java. Because one thing to know about Indonesia is it's an archipelago, and there's like hundreds of islands across Indonesia, and about 200 of them being inhabited. Not every area is the same in the sense that the culture, the language, the values, the dress, the daggers, the food, they're very different from one to another. And West Java very different to East Java and Central Java. There might be some similarities, but they are very different. And then you look at, say, Sumatran Island, different again. So
Mm.
that was very fun to, cross-reference and do the research and make sure that part of the story was accurate and very true to the tradition. And then, of course, writing the actual transition from Parramatta to ancient West Java, that was a lot of fun to write. That was the one that stuck with me the most, I think.
Taps into like everyone has that little love of history as well. And it's like, yes, I actually get to research for a purpose now.
Exactly. And I mean, the downside to that is for every question you have answered, a new question will rise. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're in an infinite loop.
There's always something more that you want to know. and find out as well. It's
We'll
never
never
ending.
know everything.
Has writing and publishing a book changed the way you see yourself?
Oh, that's a good question as well. In the sense, I have a little bit more confidence in the sense that, okay, I wrote a book. It took a while, and you go through, you know, it, like sometimes the first publisher that you approach is not going to be the one that ends up publishing you. So
Mm.
learning to sort of your resilience, like building your resilience. And so it's changed in the sense that I'm quite confident knowing, okay, I can do this, I can write. And it's also given me an even more newfound respect for writers. I've always had the biggest respect for writers, being a network of readers founder and learning from other authors, having them come on board to Readers Review as guests and learning their journey. But having gone through it myself and, seeing the dark side as well as the light side and the challenges that come with it, I feel, well, I can do this. So therefore, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do it again. Like I'm going to go through this again. It's like you've given birth and you forget the
Yeah.
pain and you want to do it all over again. Like that's what it's
You
like.
see the reward and it's like everything was worth it. It's all good.
Exactly. And the difference and the impact that it makes as well, like especially when you've got young kids whose parents are contacting you or DMing you and they're saying they couldn't put your book down. I mean, you feel fearful, obviously, because this has been in your head and your heart for 4 to 5 years and no one has seen it before. And then it gets out there in the wild, and then you're like, oh, I hope people like it. I've had my former teachers from high school reading my book. I'm like, oh my God, did I get it right? Did I get the grammar correct? Are they going to be
Don't
okay?
nitpick too much, please.
I
It's not
know,
an
please
assignment to
be
grade.
kind. But no, having that strong start and that positive review and that feedback, it's like, okay, that's great. That's gonna, I've done something right, and therefore I'm gonna try this again later on.
Mhm. That's good. And you definitely don't, do you see yourself writing in like young adult, or you think pretty much, yep, young middle graders where I want to stick?
Yeah, I think middle grade for me is where it's at. Interestingly, my Harimau actually started as a YA.
Mhm.
So I had it in my head for, the teenagers to be 16, maybe even 17 years old. And it wasn't until, shout out to Wei Chim, who is an amazing YA author, author of The Freedom Swimmer and The Surprising Power of a Good Dumpling. Sorry, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but I remember reading both books and loving both. She had a look at my manuscript from very early days, like from 4 or 5 years ago. And she said, with the family dynamic, the adventure, this reads better as a middle grade. And when I took another look at it, I thought, you know what, she's right. I think
Mhm.
that would be a better middle grade. And I can see the opportunity with the younger generation
Yeah.
with the middle grade adventure, cultural adventure stories, because I feel with YA, there's this trend now with why it's moving to more like romantasy or, slasher type of
Yeah.
sort of stories. It's like this swinging pendulum. It moves all the time in the YA space. But middle grade, there's a lot more adventure stories. There's a lot more cultural infusion in these adventure stories. Rick Riordan Presents is a fantastic series of diverse authors. It'll be a dream to be published under that name one day in the future if I ever get that opportunity, where authors from different cultural backgrounds are writing fantasy adventure stories that bring out their legends. So I'm seeing a growth in that area, particularly in MG, and I think that's where it's going to be for a while.
I think middle grade is sort of the nice happy place because you're actually inspiring those young kids to actually go out and challenge the more authors to actually write for middle grade, then
Yeah,
inspire them to write for young adult as well because they'll want to keep having books for them shown in public as well, which will
I
be
agree, 100%. There's hope with MG. There's always a story of hope. I mean, you have your moments and your
yeah.
heart stopping. Oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Oh, but then there's hope.
Always need hope.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Are there any books or authors that inspired you in your writing or to become a writer?
Oh, so reading a lot of fantasy books. I could be here all day because I've read a lot of amazing fantasy stories. Um, I'm just trying to think. Well, I mentioned three amazing authors before that I read as I was writing as well. So, Patrice Jones, Rita Shah Ideal, Isabel Magnadino, like they're fantastic Southeast Asian authors. And I hope they keep producing books because they are fantastic writers. And they also, lifted me up with my writing as well. So that was really cool. Tapping into the non-MG space. Oh, actually, sorry, one person I forgot to mention, Jeremy Laughlin. He's a fantastic MG author. He's the author of the Jane Doe Chronicles, and he's was my friend who gave me amazing advice while I was reading and gave me a fantastic, piece of advice to remember, which is don't worry too much where the book's going to end up. Just write the story you want told, and that stuck with me for so long. So he's a fantastic writer, and I read his books as well, and that taught me a lot about pacing and characterization and language because I work in professional services for 5 days a week talking to adults, and I
Yeah.
have to remember that a 12, 13-year-old person would not say pertaining to, kind regards,
Yeah.
to you by request. Like they don't say these
No.
things. B.B. Alston, the author of the Amari series, fantastic middle grade author, very inspirational. He, has a young Black girl as the center of his story. And while she goes on an amazing adventure and her family life is, quite tense, that underlying message of being kind, being hopeful, like that sort of thing. That's what I love seeing in MG. And I just devoured his books. Like he's amazing. But the non-MG space, so adult books like R.F. Kuang, for example, she's amazing. The Poppy War. Oh, I had the pleasure of meeting her and I'm like, be cool, be cool. Don't say anything stupid. I was so
Calm.
intimidated. So intimidated meeting her. And also S.A. Chakraborty, the author of City of Brass and other books as well. Like that was the David Bard trilogy was fantastic. Quite thick as it was really
Yeah.
good to read.
They're amazing books to read. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And bringing it home to Australia, Kylie Chan, the author of the Dark Heaven series, is fantastic. Like that's drawing on her experience having lived in Hong Kong for 8 years and her knowledge of martial arts and Chinese mythology, and then infusing that into an urban fantasy story that starts in Australia. I was like, wow. And it was just such a fast-paced read. And she's finally come back after so long with a spin-off series, The Serpent Princess. It's fantastic. And I'm nearly finished that finally, that book. It's so good.
Like finally Aussie authors and like having books set in Australia as well. It's like that's what we need. Don't keep setting them over in London and the US, please. So cute.
Exactly. I mean, I love those books as well, but we definitely need to, put Australian authors on the map. And also wanted to give a shout out to Stuart Wilson as well. I recently read his book, The 113th Assistant Librarian. I don't know if you've read that, but that is a fantastic cozy fantasy. That book that I devoured that in like 2 days. It was so good.
I definitely love my cozy fantasies. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
read it.
they're the
Must.
best.
If you haven't read it, you must read that. Yes.
Definitely. What advice would you give a writer working on their first book?
Sorry, advice?
Advice would you give to a writer working on their first book?
Oh, definitely. Well, I'm going to steal Jeremy's advice on this one first and say, don't worry too much on the end user or where the book is going to sit. I was fearing that as well. One person said my book wasn't middle grade, another person said it was. I was worried, where was I going to pitch it to? Where is it going to go? Don't worry too much about that when you're working on your first book. Just write the story you want told, write the story you would want to read. And also ask yourself, why are you doing this? Like, what is your purpose, or what is your motivation? And run with that and stick with that passion. Don't worry about where it might go in the end. So that's my first thing. The second one's probably the most cliche, but the most common advice that I cannot like give enough is you can't edit a blank page. If you
Yeah.
want to write, you have to write. And don't worry if your first piece is garbage. Mine was 100%. And I can't believe it got picked up by someone in the beginning. But that's how you grow and that's how you learn. You just write everything that you want to get off your mind or your chest and put it onto the document, and then go back and edit that, go through it as well. One thing as well that I learned is networking is also key
Mm.
and imperative when you want to get yourself published. Like I said, I came community first and then publication, rather than publication and community. And having that network of readers, which is pretty much a community now because it's grown just after 16 years. We don't just have readers in the house. We have creators, we have digital creators, we have bloggers, we have writers, we have graphic artists. Like, all these people have come together through this network and community. And having that connection is so key. It's not just about you getting published, but having that support as well.
Mhm.
Like Readers Review, we have created what I like to call the Readers Writers subdivision, where we've identified who the writers are in Readers Review, and we come together when we can and sit in companionable silence and write
Yeah.
and bounce ideas off each other and supporting each other as well. Because the writing community, there's no competition. We lift each other up, and we want to see everyone succeed. So, finding your tribe, finding your group is very key when you're writing, even in a solo sport. I know it's very solo.
You get
Yeah, and
you
don't be
definitely need that.
afraid. Don't be afraid. If you think that your ID, the world might not be ready, you'd be surprised. You know, if you're not sure, if you're from a minority group that hasn't yet been represented, and you're like, oh, is the world going to be ready? Do it.
Just
Do
do it.
it. You'd be surprised that we want this story.
Everyone, we need those stories out there. Like any story is needed as well.
110%. I cannot stress that enough. Like me, being the first middle grade author with Indonesian representation in a fantasy setting for the Western media, like
Mm.
that's pushed a boundary. And then you look at, Isabel Magnadino, she's the first Philippine of Philippine heritage who's broken that barrier as well with MG Fantasy. Same with Petray Jones and Ryder Shah Ideal. You can be the first in your field, break that barrier, and don't be afraid to do that. Because yeah, like you said before, we need these stories.
Yeah.
We need to fill up these shelves with these stories.
And you guys have already set the path for for those backgrounds. Just slam to open the door and go, here I am. Let's
Yes, exactly. And I'm hoping exactly that, like what you're talking about, like carving that path and showing that way. My success is not just if a reader can connect with my story, but if there's a young kid out there who wants to write their story and they just don't feel like that they're seen, that inspires them to say, no, you know what, I'm going to be seen. My story is going to be heard. That would be my success,
Yeah.
being that inspiration to another person to write their story.
That would be the biggest inspiration, really.
So yeah, yeah.
What is your favorite writing snack or drink if you have one?
Much to my parents' dismay, I like the taste of V energy drinks. Kids, do not try this at home. I do not recommend it to you because it's an energy drink, so don't.
Mhm.
But if we want to be a little bit healthy, I do love tea. Green tea or floral tea is my go-to. And snack. I do love my chips. It's
Yeah.
just it's easy, it's quick, just having chips, pizza shapes.
Go-tos.
Yeah, just little chip snacks as well. I don't eat too much while I'm eating. I don't eat too much while I'm writing. But yeah, if I want to sort of set up something, then it's usually like a floral tea or a fruit tea and some little snacks that are just quick and easy, so I don't make a mess on my keyboard because I'm very very good at making a mess.
I'm the same. Always a mess around me. Do you play music while you write? And if
I
you do you
do.
have a favorite genre?
I do play music, yes. So, for those who don't know me, I am a huge lifelong fan of Michael Jackson, the king of pop. May he rest in peace. I loved his music. He's like the greatest entertainer of all time, and I don't believe anyone can top him, in my personal opinion. And so, I do play his music from time to time when I'm writing. However, when I'm doing settings in places like a sawah, which is a rice paddy field, or I'm doing a scene that features like Indonesian creature mythology, I revert to the traditional sounds of West Java, Indonesia, called dugung or gamelan. So you could actually go on YouTube and type in gamelan or dugung, or even the word suling, which means flute. And I listen to those sounds while I'm writing, and that puts me right there in the middle of the sawah or right there in the middle of the jungle, about to face off with a naga or a babi ngepet or a garuda or something like that. And it really puts me there. But if it's, for example, like journey or part of the book or writing, yeah, tap into the King of Pop and listen to some of my absolute favorite song, being Black or White, about multicultural respect and tolerance, is one of my absolute favorites, followed by Man in the Mirror, which is like, the story of hope. If you want to see change, change starts with you. They're my favorites.
Definitely music helps set the tone and helps you get into that space as well.
Yes.
I know what I can hear and see, which is what I need.
Yes, exactly right. Yes.
And my final question is, who has been the biggest supporter of your writing?
Oh, you know what? It's a whole village of people who have been so supportive with my writing. But I can't go past mum and dad, of course. Like they've sat on the sidelines when, I work full time and then I'm off writing or I lock myself away and they're so patient with it. So, mum and dad, top supporters, 100%, followed by family and wonderful friends around me, who haven't just been beta readers, but wanting to, really get behind me and get my story out there, especially because they can see the impact and what it will have. So yeah, it's like they say it takes a village. Well, I say it takes a kampong, which is Bahasa for village. So I had a kampong behind me of amazing people. But yeah, mum and dad, 100% were there, on the sidelines and just being patient. Oh, you got a writing down? All right, we'll catch up later. And, after working 5 days a week. So they're very supportive of my creative passions and what it means to me to get published. Yeah.
You would definitely need your family and friends to help you in it. It's like, yeah, always I had the check-ins to see. So how are you going?
Exactly,
You're not lost.
exactly. Yeah, it's all about finding a tribe, like
Mm.
especially like for example, like, mum and dad, they don't accompany me on my writing days. They're not with me when I'm writing, but there are days where we have family days. I've got the laptop with me. We're having a tea or coffee and I'm writing while they're drinking, because I'm on a deadline or something. And but yeah, finding a tribe as well, because there could be people like, both of you might be writing together. So just meeting up and supporting each other, it really gets you through. It really does.
You do definitely need that to hit the deadlines and the goals and just
Deadline.
get something on the page as well.
So it's not always a late night. I don't recommend late nights. They work for me, but it's not recommended.
No, no. You need the sleep.
You need your 8 hours, everyone.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
that was my last question. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to speak to you. And yeah, I hope you all get a chance to read my Harimau King one day. It's available everywhere. And I'm very keen to hear your thoughts. Hopefully they're all nice.
It's definitely a really good read. I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you so much. Thank you.